Hi, welcome to another episode of Mojo Diaries. I'm Ram, and in this podcast, where we typically explore how real people reclaim energy, joy, and direction in life. These are real stories of real lives, not shortcuts, no viral hacks, just conversations that help you understand how people build meaning, resilience, and momentum across decades. For this episode, we start with something I'm keen on: how to stay ambitious without losing your joy, how to grow in your career while still staying young in mind and in spirit. My guest today is Venkatesh Sundar, but is very fondly called Venky, founder of IndusFace, a IT startup, seasoned entrepreneur, constant learner, and someone manages to stay youthful, calm, curious, and playful no matter how high the stakes get. He is also a very good friend and someone whose life perspective has inspired me many times. So, welcome to this episode, Venki.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. So one of the good things about the podcast is you get to hear good things from friends, which you otherwise don't. It's only galis, right? Being
Absolutely.
true friendship. But once in a podcast, there are so many good things about me I'm hearing from Ram. That's unbelievable. So that by itself is worth it.
No, no, that is all. That is all. Absolutely, you have earned it. This is not to sugarcoat in my episode, and I think there has to be times where we also kind of, face this side of the equation also. So, Venki, let's start at the beginning, right? Uh, I think that your upbringing was quite traditional, and yet the life you built, it feels wonderfully independent and self-created.
Mhm.
Where did this streak come from? How did this pivot to where you are today?
So you might find it a little bit surprising to believe there is a philosophical and a spiritual part of me where whatever has happened, I just cannot attribute anything to myself. It's just a situation and combination of where I was born, the situation that I went through, translated into where I am. So I can now sit back here and comfortably say that I did that, I did this. But reality is a lot of what I claim as I did that and I did that is actually just situational unfolding of events. And if at all I have to give some color in terms of what transpired based on your question, it's basically taking things as it comes.
True. Just to get a little bit more into the typical, study hard, do well in academics, and then, I think in the beginning you were also looking at a long career in some big company, but you became an entrepreneur, much long back. Nowadays, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, right? Nobody wants to work. So, how did that switch? What transpired you to take that big leap to say, hey, you know what, my calling is I want to be do my own startup, because that was somewhat about 10, 15 years ago. So how
No,
did that change?
actually, my entrepreneur first stint was immediately after college.
Okay.
It was my first entrepreneurial Bombay. There was this place called Lamington Road, where you can go and buy motherboards and different parts of the computers. And you can assemble the computers 8088, 8086, Intel 80. Those chips were with 40 megabytes of hard disk was a big thing in terms of storage. So Wipro, HP Compaq, the retail price for what they were selling was 25,000 rupees. But I was able to buy the parts individually and able to assemble and them for 15 to 16,000 rupees. So anyway, so how did that start? And when, in fact, I did not get out saying that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, or I did not really have any such goals or dreams after college, other than my only definition of success at the time was me and my friends have to go to a five-star hotel and be able to order anything that we want without having to worry about how much money we have in the pocket.
Wow.
And that was the definition of success. And I did the mental math that if I assemble a computer at 15,000 rupees and sell it at 17,500 rupees with the same quality, better features, more storage, and I will also throw in some software in there for free, which is written by me for a specific vertical. And the vertical I chose at the time was hotel industry. So they get billing, room service and billing software for 17,500 rupees with a printer and everything given to them. And if you go to Wipro or HP, you had to pay more than 20,000 rupees. and 2,500 rupees profit margin. And even if I do one sale, that was enough for me to go to a five-star hotel without worrying about money in my hand. That was the definition of success, and that to think big, market, all those dreams are not there. But somehow, if I look back, the fact that something drove me to do something eventually builds learning. And then, even though I did not continue that, that experience became a very good value addition in terms of my resume. Sugar coating. So I was able to show experiences in terms of software building and entrepreneurial stints, which helped me land a job in Coral, which is one of the top graphics company. So my resume was probably way more attractive in terms of experience and ability to do stuff than probably even fresh IIT grads at the time. How it started. Yeah.
No, interesting to note. So somewhere you had that the foundation of an entrepreneurial spirit, like, hey, if I do this plus this, I'll get something else rather than working in a job. So that's how a lot of companies
Yeah, the
start out
honest
like
truth
that.
is, the honest truth is also I did not get a four-figure salary was a big thing in the 90s. Like 5,000, anything more than 5,000 rupees per month was a very good salary in 92, 93. So out of college, I did not land that kind of a job. So making 2,500 rupees per sale was a much more attractive value proposition than to get a job. So
True,
yeah,
there was a bigger calling for you, of course.
yeah.
Let's shift to your kind of your work a little bit. Your career looks, very steady from the outside, but I'm sure you've had your ups and downs, some pivotal points. So what were those inflection points that actually shaped your journey? I mean, there must have been some, any startup, you would have gone here, there would have been points. What the heck am I doing? So were there some stage in your career where you said, "Gee, Viz," and then how did you get past that?
So you mean this, the oh shit moments in my life?
I'm sure must have questioned yourself, hey, did I do the right thing? Is this it? But we all go through, and then somehow you've succeeded in getting past that. So as a learning, what was that? How did you deal with it? What were those points and how do you deal with it?
So there are many, many oh shits moment in my
Sure.
life. Starting with fresh out of college, because if I had applied myself, there was no reason I should not have gotten way better marks than I did. That I graduated from. But at that point in time, there was a oh shit moment that I had fresh when I did not land the cushy 5,000 rupees job fresh out of college. There was a little bit of regret, but that regret translated into something better for me in terms of me getting into doing this hustle at Lamington Road. So to answer your question on how I went through it, the answer at the age of 20, I probably did not think of it. I was taking life as it comes on a day-to-day basis. And in fact, there was this Manipuri guy from my college called Shanti. He's a guy. He was from Manipur. And during college days, he used to say, छत है हाँ है खाना है दो वक्त का खाना है हाँ है कॉलेज का फीस भर दिया पढ़ाई है हाँ है फिर टेंशन किस बात की so it was a very interesting way of looking at it and to some extent live by the moment even though I did not really have this by default built in but it sort of attracted me and it sort of become a maxim in life from that day onwards where the absolute worst case scenario for people like us is way better than the real worst case scenarios others are dealing with, especially in a diverse country like India. The kind of struggles that people go through, there is always going to be somebody way better than you are, economically, talent wise, money wise, relationship wise, and there's always going to be somebody worse than you. So, the absolute worst case scenario of roti, kapda, makan, and something to aspire for and learn for is there, then there is absolutely nothing to worry about. And somehow it became deeply entrenched maxim of life. So every oh shit moment I have never had this foundational roti kapda makan and aspiration of something better to look forward to ever taken away from me. So when those things are not taken away from you, so in a way I'm blessed. I ended up living like a millionaire since the day I remember. Like even if I look back at my childhood days, people will say middle class life, but I always feel like I've lived like a millionaire. I've been very blessed, privileged, born with a silver spoon. I mean, it's not like I had a bungalow and a car and everything, but it was a one-bedroom house in Chembur Shell Colony. But I felt we always had more than enough. We are having fun. I got a great job, Coral. At the age of 22, I ended up getting a nice four-figure salary in dollars in Canada at the age of 22. So that was way more than I needed. And then, and of course, the aspiration was there. And when those aspirations doesn't happen and transpire, that's when we have the oh shit moment. Oh, I could have done this. I could have taken that choice. But then the foundation of roti, kapda, makan, and aspirations and learning and everything is there, then nothing else matters. So then that sort of helps you get over it very easily. And honestly, I have had shutdown related crisis in terms of business, in terms of money, and everything in the last 15 years as well. At the peak of maintenance for a family, where kids' education and their college and everything, I had to take bank loans and everything. But worst case scenario, you can get over it. You can go back to a job, you can take a corporate job, and that gave you comfort to get over those crises much more easily.
So something you said, right? You always felt like you were, you had this feeling of rich, despite what we have. That's a phenomenal thought process. And you also said something about, the COVID affected a lot of businesses. So even with that thought and conditioning of mind, where you always felt like, hey, I've got something, I'm not, necessarily poor and all that. But I'm sure the COVID was a huge point in your life. Is there something you can share? Like, hey, I'm sure you must have had some moments there, like, oh my God, because at that time nobody knew what was going to happen, right? And so, especially for startup business like yours, so was there another big learning? Despite all your conditioning of everything will turn out okay. I mean, there is only so much we could feel positive about, but when there is the relentless stuff happening, was there another big movement? And you said, oh God, and then how did you come across overcome that point? Especially it was like 3 or 4 years ago, so something very recent.
So I think the business part of it, even though there were crises, we landed our institutional capital raise. We were bootstrapped for the longest of time, but our capital raise and fundraise of an external institutional investor happened at the peak of COVID. Just after COVID started in 2020 April, where we got an investor, Tata Capital. But actually, business was the least of my worries. Some of the crises I
Oh,
went through and was everybody in my house except my dad and my son got COVID
oh,
within a week. And then that's when you realize how helpless you are. I mean, till when things are going good, you feel like you are in control. I do
yeah.
this, I do A, B will happen, I do B, C will happen, and then everything is happening and you feel like you're in control. But when something hits and hits you bad, and you realize how vulnerable you are, and even somebody like me surrendered and prayed, which I normally don't do that often. In fact, I have a fight with my mom for all kinds of what is called mannat. She keeps saying that if this happens, you go to Tirupati and
Mm,
do
mm,
this.
mm.
And I actually shaved my head for the first time because I prayed that let us get over this. And then whatever mannat my mom did and I did not do, I will finally do it. For the first time, I also ended up reaching out, not
Okay.
because of logic, but because of the fact that it was complete helplessness. And sometimes you have to do the illogical thing to get the positive frame of mind. And that was a logical thing to do. Anyway, it's a kind of confused, convoluted
No, I
set of.
think there are a lot of amazing points you make there. Despite having always a positive attitude, there are some times, when it becomes a little helpless, and then what do you do? And then the best part is to how to.
I was the first to get COVID, and I was showing off like COVID, the stamp came and nothing happened to me. Like I had a for COVID positive for 4 hours, and then it was nothing more than positive and going away. I mean, I was not impacted, even though I had the symptoms for more than a week. Whereas Shubha, my wife, she had no symptoms, and when she got COVID, within 3 hours she had to be hospitalized, and that's when the helplessness creeped in, and you realize that there's absolutely nothing in your control.
A little bit into your personal life, right? You always seem so calm, youthful, full of energy, not easily perturbed. Or is this a natural thing that you had, or is it something you built it? Is it in your genes? Because that is an amazing trait to have, right? Because, like you just explained previously, also, COVID, well, it came for a lot of people, but some people, because of their mental conditioning, it proved to be fatal. Some was worse, and then there you are just showing it off as a badge of honor or whatever. So do you figure that out? Where was that calmness that comes in your mind? Is this something from parents?
Uh,
Where did you get this?
90 to 95% of what we think we are, I can give it to the genes. I got it from my father. His
Okay.
genes and environment, the environment and the situations you are put to. So a lot of what you're talking about and being calm, being positive, a lot of it is my father was 10 times more than what you are attributing to me right now. With 10 times more crisis, with 10 times lesser options in the 80s and the 70s, right?
Wow.
At least we have a lot more option. So I would say probably growing up with him and genetic pass on has a role to play, but a lot of it is also developed. I mean, sometimes, as I said, right, when you go through those crises, having those environment, and in my case, my dad and his friends and my mom and everybody reinforcing that worst case, my huna, kuch nahi hone wale. So prepare yourself for the worst case scenario, and then all the crisis that you talk about becomes a game. You really, it doesn't bother you as much. The only thing that you don't want to lose out is the happiness of now. And if that layer of consistency is there, of the happiness of now, that doesn't mean you say, I'm happy now, I don't want to do everything. You still play those games. You still play those games of aspiring for new things. And when I say game, I play to win, but losing doesn't bother me, right? Because losing doesn't remove that foundational layer. Answer to your question, probably got it from my dad, his association.
Can say you have to be so thankful because that is an amazing trait and where you're able to enjoy life whatever it comes here, and that's now trying to it's a much more a conditioning I'm going through, and it's such a big liberation. I'm sure
Actually,
you have.
my dad told me one thing that if you really drill down, I mean, at a deeper level, happiness and I mean, those kind of spiritual angles, I keep it aside. At a very superficial level, if you really go back to what gives you the most happiness, you learn something new, or you have the aspiration to learn something new, or you have something to look forward to, right? So if you keep that, it's not money, it's not titles, it is not success and everything. If there is an aspiration, something to look forward to that is consistent in your life, and even at the superficial level, then you can stay happy because you might not be the most talented, but some of my best joys have come from learning something new. And I may not be really good in that, but the fact that I was better in learning something gave me more joy than actually being exceptionally good in something, which, for example, cybersecurity, I'm damn good in it. I've been doing this for 20, 25 years. But if I compare it with the joy of me, let's say very recently I learned surfing, where I had to jump on top of surfboard and balance myself, and I balanced myself maximum for 5 seconds. But the joy of learning that skill was way more than the success you get from something else you're good at.
It can be related to so many other factors. Just to get a little bit more into that. So, what's your process when life gets very overwhelming, right? I mean, I'm sure despite all that, there will be times. So, what is your reset button?
Thinking, has it ever become overwhelming? I mean, it's
Oh,
not ever. Maybe COVID. COVID was a situation where I really felt overwhelmed. The next closest it has come to me was, do you remember 1986, Javed Meander hit a sixer of the last ball? That was my most depressing moment in life. Right. So, I mean, so the answer to your question is I don't think it ever has, I mean, probably blessed that I had to hit a reset button and go
no, not
through.
in a large scale, like say, in the last few years where you've been trying to, scale up the business, and I'm sure you've been for continuously working on something, it doesn't work, there's no thing, there is a pressure from the investor, whatever. So, there could be a day to day where like you try to do 10 things, 10 things didn't work, and then it's compounding. What is it? What do you do? Like, is there a fail-safe method? What do you do? Or you just keep plugging along and just another day, hey, I'll try it again.
So I think one thing I do is I try to reflect back to see if I did the best I can. And sometimes the answer is not the best I can. So I learn from it so that I do it better next time. But a lot of times it is, yes, I did the best I can. So
Okay.
then there is not no point in regretting. But there have been cases where I have screwed up and I could have done better.
That's
But
okay.
that was meant to be, and then you learn from it, and there is nothing you cannot go rewind and change things back. And then I go back to this maxim of life. Roti, kapda, makan to taken care of. We are privileged, and there is, of course, the future of consistently maintaining that, not just for now, even for life,
Hmm.
for people like us, is not a huge stretch because of the education and the family and the access to opportunities we have. So, when the worst case scenario cannot is way better than 90% of the population, then what is the reason for you to complain?
No, that's
So,
that's an amazing philosophical look, right? I mean, when you have said, "Hey, if something didn't go wrong, okay, you know what, I screwed up, and then that's fine," and you're okay with it. Now, I know it's very easy to say, in an insulated conditions like right now, but actually doing that, when you try something and you put all your sources and your team is working, and then it doesn't matter, hey, you know what, dust your pants off and say, "Okay, we screwed up, let's do it." That takes a lot of guts and clarity also, I guess.
yeah, yeah. And you have to surround yourself with people who will do a positive reinforcement.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
very important. It's not going to come naturally to you. The circle you have with your family, your wife, your friends.
Mm. Um, Another aspect of life, you share a most amazing, beautiful bond with your kids, right? One that feels full of energy and friendship. And I think it's more of a friendship. And I think you yourself have said, what has parenting taught you, and about staying young at heart? Because I mean, you're the youngest person I've seen, with so much of youth and energy. So, and then I'm sure the kids must be wondering, they think you're younger than them also, right? Or you like to think you're younger than them. How do you keep that momentum? What has parenting taught you?
I mean, I tell my wife that a boy becomes a man only after he gets a daughter. It's no matter how much you try to keep it same, in terms of, there is, of course, a lot of things are same, but a daughter is different. There is more concern. So there is the empathetic part of me
Hmm.
which really blossomed after I had a daughter. Whereas if it had been two sons that I had, I would have just been that irresponsible, joking around and playing around kind of thing. There is that response. So I think the wife gets more happier that you become a better husband, you become a better dad, you
Sure.
become a better son. All of it, to some extent, I don't want, my son is going to come after me after hear this, but the daughter in your life does bring a big change on those softer skills and awareness part of things. So I think if
Oh,
you ask me, what does parenting taught me, I would say unleashing the empathy, unconditional love, trying to do the right thing even if I don't get the credit for it, selflessness. These are all things that you naturally develop as a parent. You really don't care about getting credits for your kid to do well,
hmm.
right? And once you become aware of your behavior on what you are doing to make sure the right thing happens with respect to outcome for the kids, and you're willing to go to any extent, you start thinking, why don't you apply that to all aspects of life? Why are we being selfish in others? So the concept of empathy, teamwork, doing the right thing without worrying about who gets the credit for those right things, all of this, to some extent, parenting teaches you those things. And within parenting, especially if you have a daughter, it amplifies it way more than, in my view. Of course, there's a lot of people who can come behind me for making such gender bias statements, but that's a
No,
fact that
I
worked for me.
understand. I understand very well, and I think a lot of that I can relate to having two daughters myself. I think it polishes some of your rough edges. I think another way to put it. Definitely, it worked for me.
Have you read Harry Potter?
I never read it. I somehow could
So
never.
One of the lines is, "You have an emotional range of a teaspoon." That's what she says to the other guy, and I think that's a woman's perspective in that, where guys, we are just having fun or you're making jokes.
Yeah,
The emotional range in terms of going through all the ranges and being aware of it and not putting a mask around it as a manly thing to do, especially a person who has grown up in the 70s and 80s, gets challenged, understood that it is not really a strength, but it's actually a weakness. And those aspects really gets unleashed way more, those the nuances way more, if we become a parent and as a dad of a daughter.
absolutely. A little bit outside of your work, something about life, joy, and happiness. Outside of work, what gives you the joy? What are the things that you like to put yourself into a flow? What are those things?
Three things. Cricket. I watch cricket even though it is not the right thing. I wish I don't have cricket in my life, given the results that is going on with the ongoing series. Movies. Especially, I still watch Amitabh Bachchan movies. I'm biggest Amitabh Bachchan fan, but I watch any movies, Bollywood movies especially, but I generally watch any movies. And third thing is, learn something new. Something new, not like, for example, I learned tabla. Not because I don't think I can even get close to being a performer, but I learned tabla, and I want to learn only with the intent of being able to do some show off, maybe some vanity. I mean, that becomes a goal for me, and that goal drives me to learn something new. Most of the time, I don't achieve that goal, but the fact that I have those little useless goals, which is for the pure joy of learning and aspiration, even though it is for some useless vanity goals, it still keeps you going to spend your time outside of it. Like recently, when the surfing, people are going to laugh out when I show the videos of me doing surfing, right? It's certainly nowhere close to even being called surfing. But the act of going through it gave me a lot of fun and joy, and the way the time was fun.
You do a lot of things which people think of, right? I mean, it's like that Seinfeld, the whole series of the Seinfeld episodes where a lot of things that you, or even the next one was a Curb Your Enthusiasm. What is in your mind? In that show, everything was said, what you inwardly think of. So all the things that you do, I'm sure there are a lot of people who would like to like, yeah, I want to go skiing or I want to learn surfing, but you just actualize it and do it with no qualms about whether it'll be funny or you'll break down, you'll break your hand or somebody will laugh. You have absolutely no qualms about it. So that is an itself an a quality that
So I think one aspect is be happy to laugh at yourself.
yeah.
That helps.
No, that is if you're intentionally funny, right? But unintentionally funny is another whole other level of I mean, whatever, you're so comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
That's the part.
So you're a Seinfeld fan too. I'm a mad Seinfeld fan.
Oh,
I
I
watched the entire episode, series one to whatever,
I
200
watched
plus.
every episode many times. I still feel it's the
It's
uh,
timeless.
it's the probably the best comedy show ever on TV. I mean, that's my very biased opinion. So nothing can be, nothing can get over without coming to this topic, which is so close to you and me, which is cricket. So I know we can have multiple episodes of that, the angles, the competition, and all that, right? But I had a little very different take. You're a hardcore fan of cricket, like me, but like many, but unlike many more, we go through the joy and sorrow along with the performances of a team, right? And why does this irrational thing happen to us that there is a team, they technically don't even represent the country. It's a private, at the end of the day, it's a private entity. But we are so intertwined with their performance. And if they win, you're not getting a single penny. If they lose, you're not losing anything. But what is this? We are all, educated. We have done so many things in our careers. What is this irrational thing that affects their performance affects us, and then we spend endless hours talking about it when I'm sure they are not even listening to it. How do you reconcile this? I mean, especially for us, I'm sure there are other things in life. I'm sure our wives easily can tell us about 100 things that we can devote on. How do you reconcile this?
Since you mentioned Seinfeld, I will come to a Seinfeld dialogue which he made recently. But before I get there, one of the things I'll give credit to my daughter talked about this thing called layers of emotions. Okay. So you can feel happy about feeling sad. You can feel sad about feeling happy. Anyway, so for the time being, we are passionate about sports. And if you remove this emotional component out of it, do you think we are going to have fun watching sports? No, we are not going to.
No, no. So
That's my answer.
true, there is emotion, but somehow I think as much or even more than you, these happenings in cricket field dictate my happiness or sorrow to a large extent, and nothing else. So I watch, like Olympics, right? I want somebody to win. If they don't win, hey, good job. But if India
But
doesn't win cricket, I like pumped. I
But
mean,
the entertainment factor, the entertainment quotient that the game of cricket or a tennis match that when Federer and Nadal are playing is way exponentially way more higher than the Olympic match that you're watching. You're not going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and switch on the TV and get rid of your sleep for an Olympic match. You're just going to feel happy and casually watch it. It's going to be like a Simpsons episode for you that you watch and it's there. Whereas so the way you asked me the question, how do I reconcile myself with it? So one is awareness that yes, it is affecting me and I'm sad about it. And that layer of awareness is your secret to reconcile yourself with it. Because if you remove the sadness and the happiness, quote another line from this movie, Moneyball. Have you watched the sports movie Moneyball?
yeah.
So they're playing to win and then they lose. Of course, it's a game. Of course, it's not the end of the world. But after losing, the coach when he's going to the dressing room, he's seeing those people celebrating. And then he loses it. And then he blasts the hell out of them. And then he puts them in a sad state of mind. And he says that's what losing should sound like. So, in a way, be aware that you are emotional. You can do nothing about it. Don't try to fight it, embrace it, and accept the fact that those emotions are what makes the love for the game that much more stronger. And hence you reconcile with it better. It's kind of a twisted answer, but yeah. So I think it also comes back to they said started off with Seinfeld. Seinfeld in one of his Jimmy Kimmel show or something. They ask him that, how do you keep complaining about everything? And then he says, yeah, and my wife keeps complaining about me, complaining about everything. But after 10 plus years of marriage, she has found out that complaining about stuff makes me happy. And that makes her happy. So it's which is why I'm connecting it to my daughter's layers of emotions. People like us who are emotionally challenged now start becoming aware that there are these layers of emotions. And once you become aware of it, you can reconcile with it much better by accepting it for what it is and then using your layers of emotions to counter it and reconcile with it much better. So the answer is a very philosophical answer to something as stupid as cricket, but something as stupid as cricket does own our life. It's a fact. It has an integral aspect. I mean, my biggest emotional traumatic moment in my life was 1986, Javed meandered hitting the last ball six of Chetan Sharma. It took me 1 year to get out of depression.
Yeah, mine came among many. Mine is the one 2023 World Cup loss. I don't think I've yet got over
Yeah.
that.
But I had matured and gotten over it, and I became an Australian cricket fan by the time. But so it's a very long-winded answer and twisted, but to some extent it works for me where I accept those emotions for what it is. And if you also very recently, you, me, and Davinder, we go out to play badminton, right? And Davinder was teasing me for I play only for why you're playing for points. But if you remove the points out of it, if you remove the emotions and the fight for the line calls we do, is there fun anymore in the game? Is the fun getting enhanced with those emotions or the fun getting negative? If it is getting enhanced and you are keeping it in the right balance, it's not a bad thing. So if those emotions is controlling your life to the extent of spoiling your relationship, spoiling your work, then maybe it's a red flag. But these emotions are just emotions and you're feeling sad, but you're able to drown yourself in other things, then it's not a bad thing. Accept those emotions for what it is. And cricket, the fun of cricket and our love for the game is further enhanced through those roller coasters of emotions we go through, and something that I feel proud about. So I'm actually feeling happy about the fact that I'm giving Gali to the Indian team today. They deserve the Gali. I want, right?
Yes.
So, so I'm deriving happiness out of cursing them today. So if I go to a bar or something today with you guys, you are going to get a non-stop verbal rap of MCPC Galis from me, which has to be beeped in this podcast.
Anyway, so I guess you kind of answered that for both of us. I guess that segment. Moving ahead, we'll just come to my favorite part of the segment called the 15-year letter. Right? If you were to write a short letter to yourself 15 years ago, what would you want that younger version of you to know that you know today? This is not about any kind of a warning or changing the past, but it's about sharing one or two truths that you have learned along the way in the last 15 years, which you were trying to, you were so focused on or you were not focused on. And, just telling that person 15 years ago, hey, you know what, this is the truth. What would that be?
Wow, that's a very deep question, man. I mean, 15 years, okay, let me reframe that question. What would I do different 15 years ago from now, or what would I tell the 15-year younger version of me? Is that the question?
What would you tell that version of you today? Like you're saying, dear Venki, minus 15 years, one or two things you will tell him that at that point he was trying to do something or not doing something or was focusing on something, or you know what, hey, you know what, it all turns out okay, don't worry, or something, anything.
See, one thing I would, and I recently told my brother PK about it. I mean, unofficially, he is my mentor on many things nowadays, right? I use him as a sounding board
Sure.
on many things. And I believe on different aspects of your life. We have teachers in school, right? We have coaches for sports coaches, for trainers in different things in if I want to make my game better. Or we have, if I want to sing or I want to learn an instrument, I have a teacher. But simple things like perception management, communication, how are you being perceived? the tone in which you say it, how you're handling the team. You think you're doing the right thing, but probably it is not being perceived as the right thing. There are so many of those aspects, which of course there are chief mentor roles now in larger corporation, which is there. I would probably say that, and we being the 70s and 80s kids, we don't talk about this so easily to our friends or go and ask for mentorship or guidance early. I would say that I would seek more help. I would I would tell the younger version of myself to be more comfortable with my own vulnerabilities and my own inefficiencies as opposed to hiding them and trying to get over them myself. That's probably one thing I would tell the 15-year-old younger version, and I keep telling it myself nowadays too. Uh, so there is absolutely no shame in seeking for help and being comfortable with your vulnerabilities. And of course, you have to do it with the right people who will not take advantage of that. Some
Mm,
people, if they end up taking advantage of that, then that relationship will take its own course.
correct.
But then, so that's probably what it can be a huge factor. I mean, it could have been a huge factor that could have altered some of my decisions, which in an alternate universe could have, in now when I look back, could have been better in certain aspects as well. But then I reconcile myself saying that that was not meant to be, and hence this realization would not have happened if that had happened naturally, and hence this is better. So I think it's uh, anyway. Short answer to this long monologue I did was I would probably say be comfortable with your own vulnerabilities. Go ahead and seek trusted advice and help from genuine, authentic people who care about your success without any biases and baggages.
Absolutely bang on, right? And just briefly to touch that point about you said, right? We have all kinds of coaches in your sports activities or tuitions. There is no life coaching, although it is there, but especially in India, it's something not, I mean, all over the world, but it's picking up now. And something that I have now certified myself on life coaching. And I really wished that this is something in my career when I struggled a lot, especially when I was abroad and living alone. You have nobody to, and you have no idea whether you're doing it right or wrong till the appraisals come, and then appraisal will say, oh, you were too rude at that time. Because especially in my field of hospitality, it's all about human relations, whether it's employees, there's nothing writing or anything. So how, and then only the appraisals will say, oh, you did that you did wrong. And of course, I didn't know, but today, if I reflect, I wish there was some kind of a live coaching I had prescribed to, where they would have said, this is how you talk to yourself, this is how you get out of this, this is about you get over your vulnerabilities, or it's okay to be vulnerable. So I completely agree with you that some of these things, and you need this nudge, and I think you're very lucky to have your brother. Who's kind of like your friend, and you can, and so that's an amazing relationship that you have. That even at this stage, when you can never run out of a time to not to have a
Yeah.
coach. Whether it's your personal life or your professional life or kids. That's I think that's very lucky for you to have that,
There are
and it's
few
a great.
people you can just have your guards down, right? You don't have to
Sure.
really worry about the words coming out of your mouth and the timing of when it comes out. There are a few friends, a few family members.
Great. So the final question before we wrap up, we call the Mojo connection. And for someone who's listening to this, right, and who wants their mojo back, who feels stuck or kind of drained, what's the one small step you can tell them they can take, like say tomorrow morning, to start moving again?
Enjoy the now.
As simple as it can
Enjoy the
be.
now. Have you seen that Alex in Wonderland?
Yeah.
Forgot his
Yeah, yeah. He's a
Alex
comedian. Alex something. Yeah.
comedian.
Comedian.
So
Yes.
he, in one of his Alex in Wonderland Netflix series, he makes a joke about Shivaji Ganeshan in the movie Karna. And Shivaji Ganeshan makes his presence felt when he's dying, but all he can do is only breathe. And he does stomach.
Yeah.
So and he
Yeah.
makes a difference, right? So as long as SaaS chal raha hai, the only thing that can matter is now. Of course, be aware of the fact that there is anxiety about the future, there is regret about the past. All those things, all of them packaged together, the only thing that matters is now. I mean, it's easier said than done, but if you reinforce that, then maybe it can be a step towards a better tomorrow.
Absolutely. I mean, it is easier said than done, but at least I think half the battle is at least saying that loudly, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you don't know what you don't know, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
whole other chapter in your life. So, Venki, thank you for this, episode. So much of honesty, humility, and you spoke, and there is so much of wisdom, along the way. And I'm sure there are so many people who are, whether in whatever respect in their lives they are, whether it's a professional or in personal life, there are some valuable things they can learn. So for everyone listening, if this conversation gave you even one new thought, one new possibility, or a new spark, make sure you follow the show so you can never miss an episode. This is Mojo Diaries. I'm Ram. See you next episode.
Thank you, Ram. And I just want to add that I've known you for like 17 decade and a half plus. So many positive things about me coming in 45 minutes. My brain is still, I mean, as true friends, being the 70s and 80s kids, the true friends, we don't expect friends. True friendship is when you start giving each other galis. But now the podcast magic and especially the Mojo Diaries magic has also got some positive things actually being said in words. So I'm still feeling a little bit uncomfortable hearing that from you, Ram, but it's a positive sign. So anyway, all the best for your Mojo Diaries success.
Thank you so much. And you know what? There has to be some, I think we have to create these moments to be appreciative of things. That includes friends. Sometimes, life is too joking. We just take it, oh, it's just a friend. But sometimes we have to create some moments like this,
Yeah.
maybe to make it a little bit more acceptable and appreciable. Otherwise, in a badminton court, appreciating will not work, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? So things like this might work. So again, thank you so much, Venki.